everyone, my name is Nicholas. Glad to be here to speak about how Johnson & Johnson is looking at ROS and be part of the community. So obviously I'll take you guys through some slides covering who are we and what do we do, and obviously why do we look at ROS. So as most people know, so Johnson & Johnson is a pharmaceutical company, and also a med device company, and also a consumer company. So in the healthcare realm, we have the most diverse product range that cover a broad area of work, from consumer level all the way to the hospital. And, as some of you may know, we sell vaccine as well. And that requires us to have very complex solution for each of the way we move them, the way we automate them in our production to our delivery site. So this is one of the reasons why when we look at technology, we always look at across the entire platform. If you could go to the next slide, please. And this is just some statistic. I won't read everything in there. So as I mentioned, right, so J&J is pretty diverse in our supply chain. And, we have over 100 distribution centers that, run across all these different products. We have multiple manufacturing sites that we have to deal with pharmaceutical grade production to consumer grade production. And each of them has different velocity, different cost structures. And this is very important when we drive supply chain. We look at things like interoperability. How do we get to scale without, investing too heavily in each of the technology that we use? Next slide, please. So who we are in J&J. So we're part of this supply chain innovation hub, and our growth really encompass a few things. We look at how do we drive innovation in Asia Pacific, and the key for us here is to create scalable solutions. So we can do research, we can do proof of concept, but ultimately it has to reach production grade level. It has to be certified. It has to be hardened for it. And our role focus on today, how do we do that with the likes of the ROS Consortium. I'm part of the other A-Star entity that we work with. But the idea here and the focus here, right, for robotics, we look at the interoperability middleware. How do we get to real-time control loop conversation? How do we have advancement in manipulation, perception system, and ultimately what we are going for is cloud robotics. So today, among all the different area, and I'll apologize, it's actually quite hard to read the slide here because this is a little bit grainy. But we focus on driving the technology, but we also focusing on driving all our partnership development. Who is our partners in Singapore, across Asia, and then how do we test them, and then how do we bring that to life? All right, next slide, please. So these are some of the things that obviously we associate ourselves today in healthcare. Again, the key message here, right, is there is a lot of changes going on in healthcare that look at regulated market. I think as earlier Ian present, automotive is obviously a very difficult market to go through certification as well, and he spent a lot of time looking at testing and building the core. And likewise, it's expected in the healthcare world, but today we're not quite there yet in open source, right? Because why? A lot of this technology need to really evolve in order to reach some of these values. So for example, the future of healthcare looking is personalization. How do we provide personalized manufacturing process to the customers? How do we drive the individual experience? Can the robot do 500 different skills instead of 10 skills, right? How do we change the way that works? So a lot of these values is what we look for when we drive our technology plan. And the idea from that is then to distill that into problem statement that the technology could look at. And then from there, we will try to scale it up through our internal process called test and learn, which is essentially proof of concept. And from there, we started to grow it. So I'll give an example how those have been grown, together with the ROS Consortium. Next slide, please. So this page doesn't need more explanation. I'm pretty sure folks that are some robotic are familiar with it. So there's quite a fair bit of gap in today's industry. The good thing is from so far what we hear and what we see as in the presentation, things are moving in the right direction, in terms of driving interoperability. You can hear from Matt that talk about human-machine interface. How do we look at new level of certification? How do we drive cognitive skill? And I think earlier Daryl talked about the manipulation technology and the perception technology. Those are things that we look at. But also the trend, right? If we look at in the robot market trend today, there's a lot of companies that really produce great results, very interesting robotics. But then the challenge with it is as this continue to grow, it's also making it harder for us to explore how do we make all of them work within the same environment. So I think those are the things that when we look at it, we like it, but we also have to look for ways to manage it cost effectively. So I think those are the things that when we explore, we look at ROS as one of the potential, and how do we enable it, how do we scale it is the key. Next slide, please. So today, right, where we are is we are using a lot of this type of brands, but the challenge with it is it takes a lot of time and effort to integrate them. And rightly, as I mentioned earlier, you could see the type of product that we build. It's really hard to scale if every one of them require a different integration platform. And it's just obviously going to drive the cost up, and the ability to drive the data across all the platform become even more complex. And we've seen this appear in manufacturing, transport, and we talked to other sectors, and even the Jingyang was talking about the hospital. Even the hospital is going for it. Now we learned that even the airport is going for it. We know this is a common problem, right? And I think those are the things that we believe that in the right level of investment and the right level of push, we could get to where we want by doing it collaboratively and doing through partnership. Next slide, please. So J&J has this concept internally that when we work on it, right, we still have to satisfy what is inside J&J. So today we have a team that focus on the architecturing of this thing called FMMS. It's our next generation robotics platform. To be very open, this is not new. Many companies share the common challenge and are trying to design towards that. But the key for us is to really, can we design smart modular platform that is Lego blocks, but has a physical and a digital realm. But at the same time, it could serve complex manufacturing in pharmaceutical to low-cost manufacturing in consumer, right? And we are looking at building these blocks right now in Singapore, and we're working with a few partners to do that. And we're going to test them out, and we're going to see how well they perform. But at the same time, we have to look at how do we scale them to some of our sites. The next slide is going to show a video. I hope it turned out well. Here, that's all right. That's sound. No, there's no sound. Is the event team able to get the sound back on?
Hold on, they are restarting your video.
Okay.
Flexible manufacturing is powered by a toolkit of cyber-physical modules, with both hardware and software working together as one intelligent system. Each module can change and adapt depending on the process required. Digital intelligence enables remote management, allowing for rapid changes in production output, responding to dynamic demand. The same module can work individually or as part of a group, arranging into unlimited configurations to meet complex demands seamlessly. Each additional process adds new capability to the platform, allowing it to continuously learn and adapt over time. Flexible manufacturing is powered by a toolkit of
Okay, so I hope everybody could see that. So it's a concept that we started to work on for a couple of years now. And we are actually integrating the ROS layer into this level of hardware with traditional operational technology space, in the likes of Rockwell, Siemens, Beckhoff, ABB. And the reason why we had to do that is we have to find a reasonable way to scale that in our factories, in our warehouses. And we don't believe that everything on this page is going to be done this way in the future. There will always be technology that are high volume, very well designed by our partners, and we'll continue to use that. But at the same time, as demand evolve, right, consumers starting to ask for more customized product, it actually required us to shift that line. And this shift, J&J is actually pushing for it internally, because end of the day, if we don't shape the ecosystem, right, it will never be the right way that we want. So I think those are the things today when we look at it, this become one of our core technology that we work in Singapore. And then next slide, please. So how does that work for us, right? So why ROS? So when we look at ROS, right, this is becoming part of our strategy, that when we look from end to end, we need a technology that can complement the rest of the other pieces that we look at. And the key thing is to drive scalability, interoperability, and also how do we augment it with cost drivers, with industry collaboration, and so forth. And I think in that space, right, and I think Dave also mentioned earlier, there's a lot of drivers being built from Picnic. And our role is really to say that, when we design the flexible modular platform, these are able to be reused, developed, and able to support as many hardwares moving forward. And that makes our ability to accelerate our journey much faster. So I think that's the reason why when we look at ROS as one of our key drivers. And then the next few slides, I'll share some examples on that. Next slide, please. So in the early part of J&J, when we joined the ROS Consortium last year, one of the things that we look at is bin picking. And the reason is every warehouse and factory that we have, you need to pick objects. And it so happened that we have this space in Singapore that belongs to our logistic hub. And we are picking from a vertical storage system. So vertical storage is basically a machine that has all the goods in a vertical lift. And what it does is we can call out the lift and the robot will automatically go and pick the object. And the idea there is really the challenge that the team face in operation is they've been trying to get a reasonable solution. So it's either too expensive, too complex, very hard to integrate. And we have been working with a local partner of ours. And thankfully, they're also part of the ROS Consortium to look at how to scale from there. And the idea is, again, to look at those values, right? Can we scale it? Can we make it agile enough to change because the product changes? And can we drive resiliency in that? So, for example, in today's environment, we have pandemic. And many times we will get the constraint to say that, we can't send more operators into the workshop or into the warehouse. Guess what? You need to send a robot now to go pick it up. And those are the things today that we can see that, the trending is still there, that we have to accelerate this. And ROS is obviously one of the value proposition to do that. Next slide, please. So the idea that we have, right, and again, to look at it from a holistic level, we are looking at a ROS stack that combines the appropriate, AIV system, a selection of the scanners, arm grippers, and all the different components that come together. And obviously, what is probably not mentioned in here is also the cybersecurity, the quality testing as well. But end of the day, right, we are trying to build this module as we learn to drive the journey in J&J. And J&J has been using other technology in this space as well from our turnkey supplier. And the second thing that we obviously like to focus on during this trial is using simulation, because simulation is helping us to look at how we could model the site, test the idea, how big is the walkway, how long does it take to do each of these, is there enough safety measures being put in place to make sure that it works. So these are the things that, when we go through the thought process, we try to design around this framework, and then we will send that through our test and learn model. Next slide, please. So this is a quick video. I hope it's running well, and good thing this is no audio. So the first part of it is really a comprehensive test by the team, looking at benchmarking the performance. And we run a full warehouse simulation model on Gazebo with the ROS consortium, and that allows us to determine from an onset how it works, what are the limitations, and from there we actually move it into the warehouse for the actual test. And the idea there that we wanted to make sure, right, is we drive the key benefits from it. So the simulation, for example, it actually improve our development time. We don't have to spend as much time doing it in the traditional way. And we also see improve in the throughput when we do the actual test. So the challenge in here, right, is we use machine learning codes to recognize each of the product SKU. They're able to do on-the-fly scanning, able to pick up to make sure that it's the right product, how many parts do we have, and then they put that into the boxes, and then the robot will obviously run out to another location to drop the box to the packers to pack. So I think those are the things today we see value when we do it, because why we actually can scale with this, because there's many different products that J&J has that will continue to tap on the system, and we don't have to rebuild it every time when we transfer or deploy it to a different region. Next slide, please. So today, the idea there, as I mentioned, right, today J&J has vertical storage in Singapore, but elsewhere we have shelf picking, AccuView, which is another product of ours. We have very large warehouse with ASRS, and we have different type of products from pharmaceutical bottles as well. So we see this as a very viable solution as we build the platform, we validate the performance of it. We work with our local partners, our regional partners, to see can we scale that. And then that helps us to drive not just adoption, but also the speed of increasing efficiency in our supply chain. So these are some of the things that, as technology evolve, J&J is definitely in that forefront to try to get things to work better. Next slide, please. So here's the key takeaway for us. We like what we see in ROS is really driving up the value in terms of looking at what possibility can it do. It's very easy to set it up, test, and develop. But our aim is to really, towards the ROS 2.0 as the main robust standard platform. Because end of the day, I think it's just what Yan mentioned, a lot of time because of the regulatory environment, we had to address all the key factors. So cybersecurity, real-time performance measure, is the code quality able to meet GMP class manufacturing process? And those are the key for us to look at. The third thing that we look at is actually the ability for ROS to be deployed with system integrators. Today, I think in Singapore, it's still in its infancy. There are some system integrator that does that, but it's at not the same level as what I would say compared to the Europe market or the US market. I think this is where in Asia there's a lot of opportunity and work to be done. And we do welcome system integrator to talk to us if they're on the call as we look at this and we roll it out. So with that, I like to end my presentation. And if there's any questions, feel free to drop me an email